Hello everyone and welcome back into the workshop. As always, it's a joy to have you here, and especially today because today we are making a pair of scissors. Now for the design of this pair of scissors, I like this design that has the blade, or more like the handles, offset from the blade. So I think we are going to trace the two pieces of this and go ahead and make this style of pair of scissors. I have a stack of blade material here. Let's look at them. That one's too thick. That one's still too thick. That one's too small. That one has yellow paint on it. That's weird. That one looks perfect. With our blanks now sanded or ground on the outside, all the way down to the lines that we've drawn, it is now time to cut out inside these handles. And for that, we get to use the milling machine. We've now finished machining out the centers of these handles, and I think they look beautiful. Now, you probably saw right there at the end where this one just fell out of the vise. Why did it do that? Because it was tight in the beginning. Here's why. As I machined out this center to the handle, I'm cutting away the steel that gives it the strength to clamp on it like I did in the vise. And so all of a sudden we're just clamping on these thin little ribs here. There's no metal between it to give the strength, so it loosens up, and of course when it's that loose, because these things spring, there's no way it can get enough grip to stay in place with the amount of pressure this machine puts on the bit to cut it. But that's okay. I think we have done enough with the mill. I will now finish cleaning out the insides with a Dremel rotary tool. Alright, got it fixed. Now we can clean out the handles. Well friends, it's actually starting to look like a pair of scissors. We now have it cleaned out, and I just want to say a huge thank you to Jonathan at Farmer's Friend LLC, link in the description, for this mill. Can you imagine how long it would have taken to completely grind out the inside of those with the Dremel tool? With our pair of scissors to this point right here, we are now ready to grind the bevels on the blades. You know, in a knife, you usually have two bevels, one coming down on each side of the blade. Even though we have two blades here, we still only have two bevels, and that is because there's only one bevel per blade and they face each other opposite. You'll see how it gets put together. We'll now go over to the belt grinder, put these on the grinding jig, one at a time of course, and go ahead and grind these bevels. Friends, I can't believe it. From this side, the bevel looks fine. But look at this side. I just ground the bevel on the wrong side on this piece. Time to make another one of these. Purely for a comparison, this one is the mistake. You can see which side the bevel's on. this one is correct. See how the bevel's on the other side? So now that we have our blades heat treated right here, we are ready to finish the blades. By finishing them, I mean sanding them to the level of smoothness that we want on the finished pair of scissors. But I've made a little mistake in the order of doing things. Before heat treating these, I should have drilled the holes in these blades where the scissors will pivot, where that rivet will go through. Now that it's hardened, and tempered of course, but it is harder than before, I don't know if I'll be able to drill it or if the bit won't do it. So we'll have to see what happens. I should have drilled those holes first, but here we are. So let's move forward with what we have. Alrighty friends, we have now finished sanding the blades on this pair of scissors, and we are now ready to turn our attention to that rivet hole I talked about earlier. As far as the finish on these things, I should probably mention it. I only sanded them to 220 grit, which isn't that fine, but then I put them on the buffing wheel, which really smooths up the surface, but it does not make it a mirror. You still have the scratch pattern of the sandpaper in there, but it's still very smooth. It's a finish I've done on knives quite a bit. I really like it. So with that done, we are now ready to turn our attention to the rivet hole. And what I plan on doing is stacking them directly on top of each other, how they'll be, and seeing if I can drill right through one to the other. That way they're perfectly lined up. I don't know how it'll go. Let's see how it goes. Friends, in spite of ruining the cutting edges on one of my little bits, we have a hole in here. And we have 1/4-inch brass rod to use for the rivet, and it is even starting to look like a pair of scissors. I'm getting so excited about this. Next thing that we need to do is start working on the handles. Riveting it together is the last thing I'm going to do because it's really hard to do any final sanding on it. So we can drill the holes now for the pins and the handles and get ready to start working on the handles. Choosing handle material is always a little bit difficult to me because I have so many options that I all like. I have come down to 2 options here. One is a white Corian, like countertop material. The other is this piece of black walnut. And this is an interesting piece of black walnut because it has light wood on the outside and dark wood on the inside. So using these pieces, I could align the white, it's not white, wax tan wood on the outside of the handles and the dark wood on the inside, or the light wood on the inside and the dark on the outside. That could be really fun. If I used Corian, I would want to use this bluing to make the blades black, because as you might remember from my very first video about making the carbon steel knife, I like a dark blade with a light handle or a light blade with a dark handle. So if I had a light handle, I would want a dark blade. I think I've chosen to do one of my all-time favorites, and that is black walnut wood. I think this will look really nice. We can leave the blades with that sanded, buffed finish that we put on there earlier. So I have plenty of material here. They're still a little bit thick, but that's fine. That belt sander over there will take off many cubic centimeters of wood very quickly. So let's get to work laying out the handles on these, and I'm getting excited. This is starting to look like a pair of scissors, and it won't be too long till it's done. Well, friends, we have another obstacle to overcome. If you look right there, in gluing this piece of wood, it chipped out next to the pin. I know why that is. Using the lighter wood, we were kind of asking for trouble, because the lighter wood is on the outside of the trunk of the tree. It's a much more porous wood, and yeah, it's a little harder to work with. So when we pushed through that pin, that's what made it chip out. Now I think we are going to go ahead and continue with it like this. I think I may be able to repair it or fill it with some sawdust from the same wood. If I still had that piece, I could probably put it in, but I have no idea where it went. It fell on the ground here, and I have no idea where it went. So that's a little bit disappointing, but I think we're going to continue, and I don't think it will affect it too much. I think we'll be able to fix it pretty nicely. Alrighty friends, we can now take a break. We kind of have to wait a little bit now because both handles are glued. This one right here in the big vise, handle number 1, and handle number 2 is out there, and I know the camera's not exposed for you to see it. Out there, where it's too bright, is where the other one is, because I have my other vise out there bolted to the forge. I went ahead and used both of them so I could glue both handles at the same time. I didn't film handle 2 in detail because the steps are exactly the same as handle 1. So they are both gluing. It is so hot. My shirt is quite soaked with sweat. And because it's so hot, not only that, this epoxy is curing so fast. As you saw in the containers here, it is supposed to be 5-minute epoxy. Well, today I'd say it's 2.5 or 3-minute epoxy. It cures so fast that the lid I had it in, right here for mixing it, got hot and started to bow on the bottom because of the chemical reaction, that epoxy happening so fast. So, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I don't think we have to wait as long as we normally would before we can start working with these. I'm going to go ahead and put the camera on time-lapse so you can watch it cure, or more like watch the clock go round. But we will be back shortly. Well, thanks to the power of video editing, we will be back right now. The handles have finished curing. Well, the epoxy has finished curing on the handles, and we are now ready to start shaping them, except that this place that it chipped that I mentioned earlier is continuing to give me a little bit of a problem. I went ahead and punched the pin out. As you can see, it's like a huge hole there because of the chip. And when gluing this pin that was in there, it did not just press out into the wood spacers we put on the outside instead of the vice jaws contacting it. It did not press into that. It tweaked to the side and tweaked out probably to a 45-degree angle or so, which made the hole even bigger. Instead of trying to work with a 1/8 inch pin, here is what I plan on doing. I'm going to take the drill and drill it out to a size 3/16 of an inch. And I think we will put one 3/16 inch pin in this handle, and all the rest of them will be an 1/8 inch. I probably could keep working with this 1/8 inch pin, but I really think it's going to cause more of a problem than if I were just to say, okay, we'll put one bigger pin, drill it out cleanly. I think that'll work well, so let's do it. Well, friends, I love it. This is starting to really take shape and look beautiful. We've done quite a bit of work with the belt sander and the Dremel, using the Dremel on the inside and using the belt sander to take off wood where we need to quickly. And we almost have half of our scissors done. Let's see, scissors is plural. So we almost have a scissor done. The epoxy on this one is not quite cured, but that's okay, because on this one we only have hand sanding left as far as I can tell. So by the time we are done hand sanding this one, that one will be ready to start on. So this is looking beautiful. It's making me so excited. I can't wait to finish it. Let's keep going. Our pair of scissors is really starting to look like a real pair of scissors now. But as I align this where the rivet's going to go, we have a slight alignment issue. Let me show you more closely. With these scissors lined up right here where the rivet will go, you can see that the tip here is not completely closed. The reason that is because right over here, as the handle pivots down, this top handle hits the wood of the bottom handle. Now there's a couple ways we could fix this on this pair of scissors. We could sand away the wood right down here, or we could sand away the metal on top up here, which I think that's what we're going to do. Because this is so thick up here, I don't think there's a need to try to adjust that wood, because I like how the wood looks. So let's go ahead and sand away that metal, and then let's see how it looks. We're getting there, but it needs to go a little further. Alrighty friends, it looks beautiful. Now we can go ahead and finish the final sanding. This is why we left it in two pieces. We can do the finish, sanding, touch up, whatever we want on the blades, and then we can rivet it together. It's looking beautiful and it is almost done. All that we have left to do is to sharpen it and test it. It's done. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to cut something. Two layers. Easy, of course. 4. Still easy. 8. Still smooth. 16. Still like butter. 32. A little bit harder, but still a clean cut. I need to get more paper. So here I have 2 pieces of paper folded up to 32 layers. Let's double that and see what it does. Still a fairly clean cut. So I know it cuts quite cleanly, at least 64 layers. Let's go ahead and finish cutting up this thick piece. Friends, I always enjoy making useful tools like this. It is such a joy to have this completed, but do you know what's even more a joy? To have brought you along on the process. This has been so much fun to make, and if you have not had the satisfaction of making your own tool, I would encourage you to try picking up a piece of metal, a piece of wood, put some work into it, even if you only have hand tools. You know, this could have completely been done with a file and hacksaw. It makes it faster because I have power tools, but you can do so much with hand tools, and I would encourage you to pick up some raw materials, put some work into something, and make a tool that you can use for years to come. At the close of this video, I would like to thank you for having joined in this adventure as we have gone about making this pair of scissors, and until I see you next time, forge on.